No? Okay. So in previous classes, we have already started with the concept of defamation. We have started, and we have seen that defamation in law is what it is, something where a person attacks the reputation of another person by making any false statement and publishing such false statement. That is, the statement is communicated to a third party, tending to bring any kind of disrespect or disrepute to the person who is being referred to. And this concept is an elusive one and is limited in its varieties only by human intervention. So we can say that yes, there is some a person who is leading to some disrespect to another person, right? Although we say that defamation is a creation of English law, but where there were many doctrines that existed even 1,000 years ago in various jurisdiction, that that is not required to be touched upon here. But you should know that any kind of disrepute that was there even in ancient times were taken into consideration. Then we also discussed that defamation requires that the publication should be false. It should and without the consent of the allegedly defamed person. No, there is no consent of that person who has been defamed. Right? Words or pictures are interpreted according to common use and in the context of publication. Then we also seen that injury only to feelings is not defamation. There should be some loss of reputation. Then we have seen that the defamed person need not be named but must be ascertainable where the person can be located. Then we have also seen with respect to the class of people whether they are considered to be defamed. Then we have seen that the class of person is considered defamed only if the publication refers to all its members, particularly if the class is very small or if particular member are specially imputed. So we have also looked into the cases also with respect to this, examples also with respect to this. So this is what we have discussed in previous classes. So today we'll be starting with lecture 3 on defamation. And to start with, we need to have a brief discussion on acts to what defamation is under English law, mainly because of the historical reasons, right? We can say that it has developed through English law. And when we talk about English law, we say that the English law divides defamation into two parts, that is libel and slander. Slander is the publication of defamatory statement in transient form. Like, for example, it may be spoken by words or gesture, whereas libel is representation, which is made in some permanent form, like, for example, writing, printing, right? Any kind of picture. So normally, there are certain things that have been discussed whether in a cinematographic film will it be considered as libel or slander? So it has been stated differently that in a cinematographic film, not only the photographic part of it is to be considered libel, but also the speech that synchronized with it is considered under libel. However, when we talk about this, there are different opinions on this. So there is no one rule that is followed under these conditions. Then another test which has been suggested for distinguishing libel and slander is that we'll be coming to libel and slander, but I'm only giving an introduction. Is that there is another difference in libel and slander, that libel addressed to I and slander addressed to ear. So, under English law, the distinction between libel and slander is material for two reasons. So, when we talk about this, we say that it is there for two reasons when we talk about this aspect. First, the word defamation is the generic name for the wrong, that is libel and slander, right? And libel is both civil as well as the criminal wrong. You need to understand, you need to keep this in mind. And whereas slander is merely a civil wrong in English law, except in certain circumstances that I'll will just go through what are the circumstances that are concerned. So when we talk about English law, there is a distinction between libel and slander, right? And as I've stated that there are two reasons. First, that libel is not slander, is punishable under criminal law, right? In fact, slander is no offense. So it is libel which is punishable under criminal law, under English law, not slander. Thus, libel is always actionable per se. So under English law, this is one reason. Second is that in most of the cases, slander which leads to special damages. That is, there should be some. It should be shown for slander that there are some special damages that have been caused, right? But as far as law of tort is concerned, slander is actionable only in exceptional cases and on proof of special damages. So, under English law, if you understand that what the situation is, we say that it is the label which is considered under as a criminal action per se, whereas for slander, you have to prove some special damages. Okay? So, and what are these things that have to be proved under slander is they are imputation of criminal offences to the plaintiff, imputation of a contagious or infectious disease to the plaintiff, because of which people start maintaining distance with that person, imputation that a person is incompetent, dishonest, or unfit in regard to the office or profession, imputation of unchastity or adultery to any woman or girl is also what is actionable per se. So these are four exceptions under which the proof of special damages, there are these four exceptional instances in which proof of special damages have to be proved, right? And in order to have the claim under the act of slander. So when this is about the position that is there under English law. When we talk about what is the position under Indian law, we need to understand this thing that we have the freedom of speech and expression, and at the same time, there is Article 21 that protects our right to dignity. So, what is the criteria? We can say that from where have we derived this right to live with dignity, right to ensure that we are respected, our reputation is not harmed. It is from Article 21 that we can draw that every individual is given this right. But on contrary, we have Article 19(1)(a), which definitely has to be read with. This has to be read with Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution that talks about reasonable restrictions upon this right of freedom of speech and expression. So what it says is that when we are talking about this, we need to understand that both rights, that is under Article 19 and Article 21, they have to subsist harmoniously. The right to freedom of speech and expression must be exercised within the given limits as prescribed under Article 12. And one more thing that you need to keep in mind with respect to this is that it has been decided in a number of cases that Article 19 and 21 are connected with each other, they are complementary to each other, and they grant most basic rights to Indian citizens, right? And they are not mutually exclusive. Cases like Menka Gandhi, Keshav Nanda Bharti case, K.S. Puttu Swami, these are certain cases where court has held that fundamental rights are not mutually exclusive. They are connected with each other. And therefore, if a restriction is imposed upon a right under Article 19 of the Constitution on the basis of Article 19 to till 19(6), then it has to pass the test of reasonability, fairness, of non-arbitrariness, right? And Article 21 is what is giving you the rights in a very wider manner, where even right to live with dignity is included within this, right? So if there is anything that takes away your right, you can make a claim. You can say that you can file a case for compensation that my rights have been infringed. So, tort of defamation purports to strike a balance between freedom of speech and the protection of reputation. Okay, so there need to be a balance between two. So, this is why I'm explaining it to you, is because there are many cases that comes up whenever there is question of freedom of speech and expression. Well, that is not the topic of discussion for defamation for law under law of tort, but I'm just making you aware about this aspect that yes, Article 19 and Article 21 do overlap whenever we have the question of freedom of press and expression, which will not take up the same aspect you'll be taking up when you'll be studying constitution. Okay, so the position that is there in India is that when we talk about the position, we say that slander and libel are treated alike, both are actionable per se. There is a limitation period of 1 year. Within the period of 1 year, you have to bring an action. So when we talk about the position in India, we say that criminal law in India does not make any distinction between libel and slander. Both libel and slander are criminal offences under 499. If you read the section of 499 IPC, both have been made a criminal offence. It has also been noted that though libel and slander both are considered as civil law wrong, but there is a distinction between the two under English law that I've already stated previously. Right now, that libel is actionable per se, but in the case of slander, except in certain cases, proof of special damages is required. And though there has been a controversy whether slander like libel is actionable per se in India or not, or special damage is required to be proved or not, as in England. So it has been stated by the authorities that the libel and slander, there is no distinction, and thus making slander and libel both actionable per se under Indian law. Okay, so the correct position, if you want to understand that, they have been put on similar footing, both slander and libel. So next thing that we need to understand is that what is the concept of libel and slander. Already all of you know this. I've also explained to you, but still we need to just go through as to what libel and slander is. So libel, a publication of false defamatory statement in some permanent form, right? That tends to injure the reputation of another person without lawful justification is actionable. It is actionable per se without proof of actual damage. In libel, general damages are presumed, that is, the plaintiff does not have to show actual damage, which include compensation for disgrace, dishonor, humiliation, injury, reputation, etc. Whereas slander, it is a defamatory statement which is oral, which is in transient form, and it is actionable upon the proof of special damages. So, what is the basic difference between the two? Now, the main important thing is that what is the difference? So, under criminal law, when we talk about the criminal law, though libel and slander are both considered to be taken into consideration, but we need to understand this thing that when we are talking about libel, we are talking about the permanent form, and when we talk about slander, we are talking about some oral or spoken words. So both have been considered as offense under criminal law under 499 that we will see, but the difference is in the form in which they are committed, right? Another one is with respect to the actionability, right? Slander is actionable only when special damage is approved, except the four situations, circumstances, right? That already been discussed. Then, when we talk about libel and slander, they both require publication. This is a similarity between the two, right? Lies in the form, like I've already stated, in the gesture. What spoken is it spoken or is it written, right? And with respect to how you can file a case for a particular offense being the slander or libel. Then it is also important here to understand that what is section 499 of uh, IPC is talking about. Because when we talk about defamation, we need to understand that this aspect of defamation is taken up under Indian law under this section of 499, and here it says that in India both civil and defamation is both civil and criminal offense. Section 499 says, whoever by word, either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visual representations, makes or publish any imputation concerning any person intending to harm, or knowing or having reasons to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person, is said, except in the cases herein expected to defame that person. Now, there are certain exceptions. So, there are four explanations to this sections that we will do. We will go through the exceptions, and then the defenses will do in lecture 4, but we'll just look into what section 499 is talking about. And section 500 states the punishment for the defense as a defamation as a criminal offense, which is punished with simple imprisonment, right, and with a fine or both. So it provides 10 explanations as exception to the offense of defamation, right? And these are the defenses that we need to understand. That what are the defenses when we talk about defamation? there are certain exceptions that are given to this particular aspect of defamation. Now, what are these? Like truth published for public interest. These include statements made or published for public good, any expression in good faith on the conduct or character of public servant on public question, publication of substantially true report. It is not defamation to express in good faith any opinion regarding the merit of any case which has been decided by a court of justice or the conduct of any person as party or the witness or agent. It is not defamation to express in good faith any opinion regarding the merit of any performance which an author has submitted to the judgment of the public. We'll come to this, that what do you mean by good faith, what do you mean by public interest, okay? It is not defamation if a person having any authority over another person, either conferred by law or arising out of a lawful contract, to pass in good faith any censure on the conduct of that other in matter to which such lawful authority relates. It is not defamation to prefer in good faith an accusation against any person to any of those who have lawful authority over that person with respect to the subject matter of accusation. It is not defamation to make an imputation on the character of another, provided it is made in good faith by person for protecting of his or others' interest. It is not defamation to convey a caution intended for good of a person to whom conveyed or for public good. Now, in all these exceptions, there is something common. What is common? The thing that is common is public interest. What is good faith? So the question is that what do we understand by the term public interest? What do we understand by good faith? So when we need, in order to understand these concepts, we need to understand that when we are saying public interest, we say that it is a matter that relates to everyone in the society, right? And anything which is done for everyone in the society is what is done in good faith. It is about the common good, general welfare, and the security and well-being of everyone in the community. So the public interest is not just what readers, listeners, or viewers want, either as consumer or people who want to be entertained. That is not public interest. It is about issues which affect everyone, even if many of them are not aware of it, or even if they don't appear to care. So when we are talking about these public interest, we are saying that this is something which is common to everyone. It is not something which is relating to a single individual, or it relates to the interest of a person. So, what is public interest is a complex question, particularly where privacy is concerned. So, when we talk about this privacy, we are talking about that we are disclosing something which is very private to another person. But why we are disclosing this? Because there are certain reasons. There are reasons of public interest. There is something for the welfare of the public. We need to disclose certain aspects, and if not disclose, some injustice will be done, right? So this disclosure is required in order to give a kind of a warning, a kind of a pre point out to the public that yes, one need to be very cautious in a given situation. It is not something that talks about the interest of a public. So there is a difference in these two phrases, okay? You need to understand. And this is what is called the public interest test. These two terms, that is, one term is public interest and second term is interest of public. Like people are interested in certain things. That is not public interest. That is your interest. So the first task is to separate these two aspects. That is, what is in the public interest from those things that members of the public are interested in. Okay, and we need to understand. Okay, so we need to understand that these two phrases are very important to understand. We need to understand. So, what is the members of the public are interested in, and public interest? These are two phrases, and we need to make a distinction, right? They are not same. Many people may be interested in, like for example, in celebrities, in popular culture, in any other reality show or whatever aspect this is. they can refer to. That is what is referred to public are interested in certain fields. It is classified as interest of public in a given topic. That is not public interest. But where the concern is for the matter that have dramatic impact on people's life, like for example, any kind of statement about the provision of a basic services like transport, education, health, sanitation, right? These are the concern of public interest. They're absolutely, we say that they are the vital matter of public concern. We will not say that public is interested in these things, but these things are required to ensure that the public good is done. Is it clear? And anything which is done in for to ensure this public good, this public interest, health is what is said to be done in good faith. Just because public is interested in something has nothing to do with whether it is in public interest. Your interest is different from the interest of the public, right? In public interest in a specific area and the interest for public is different. So the public interest is in having a safe, healthy and full functional society. So these points are referring to such disclosure of a statement that is required for the welfare of the public, that is essential point in order to ensure that yes, it is required for a proper functioning of a society. Is it clear? So if you go through again, go through these points that are given under 499, right? You will find it in your IPC Bear Act, even online. If you search for the official gazettes, you will find these codes there, and you'll be able to get to know that what public good is. Right. So with this, we will end this lecture. We will continue with this aspect of defenses, because when we'll be doing justification, we will come to these points along with the cases and examples for your better understanding as to what we understand by the defenses as against their defamation. If you have defamed a person, if you have made a statement with respect to another person that takes away their reputation, you should have some justification for making them. So these justifications we'll do in the next class. For today, we have discussed as to what is the position in India and what is the position in England. What is the difference between label and slander? What are these concepts? And therefore, moving on to section 499, and then we'll continue with justification in the next class. Take care, all of you.